That's you.
Oh, Slough. I thought you said Matt. My hearing aids are right here.
Jankowski,
Yes.
Martini,
Here.
Snyder, Newman,
Here.
Jennings,
Here.
Clark,
Here.
Ramey.
All right, so I guess motion to excuse Matt and Paul from the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, agenda additions, I'm going to add just results from the goose egg program to 7C. Anybody else have anything they want to add to the agenda for tonight?
We need to address comments from last meeting.
No, we could just do it.
Well, we've got it.
I guess we'll add to D, we'll just write comments from last meeting under 7D. Okay. Motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, approval of the meeting minutes. I was not here, so I'm going to take your guys' word for this one.
Yeah, I read through them. Make a motion to approve.
Wait.
Yep.
On Shakespeare, H, septic field update. They've investigated further. Oakland County had to approve, and since then they have approved.
Okay.
They have approved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. But in the minutes,
did you
the
get
minutes
that?
are captured, right? So we'll talk about that
Second.
in the septic update, so.
Okay, thank you.
So somebody approve the minutes?
Yeah,
Motion
I'll make
approved?
a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, call to the public, which we'll get to you in a second, so not at this point. I think we're good. All right, let's move on. New business, Progressive here, stormwater management presentation. Let's have at it.
Want me to run them?
I can click some buttons. I'm all right. I'll go click buttons.
Looks like it already started.
I'm just happy we got it working.
Yeah, I can click next, you can deal with next slide, and I just click a button. All right.
Hey, Paul, you might want to get by the microphone so they
Oh,
can pick
okay.
you up on
Yep.
camera.
Oh, there you go, yeah, use
Oh,
that one.
that's
You
better.
can
Oh, okay.
buy the thing,
Yeah,
that works
perfect.
either one.
What are we watching there?
Start.
They're gonna do a presentation on basically water coming in.
Hi, I'm Carrie Rivette. I'm an environmental engineer with a background in stormwater. I think many of you already know Paul Hausler, who's our lakes expert. I joined Progressive back in the fall, and Paul and I got together and said, I worked running the City of Grand Rapids stormwater system for about 12 years, and I didn't have a lot of knowledge of what Paul does, and there's a disconnect because lake people don't look back at stormwater as much, so we said, the two of us, it's a great combination. I worked with mostly rivers and streams, but the stormwater impacts are going to be similar on lakes.
Yeah. Is this one still on, or do you want me to?
Yeah,
use
that's
the-
Yeah, that's all.
I think they're all hot.
Yeah, so, I'm just gonna pick it up. So, yeah, we, as Carrie mentioned, we kind of got together and decided, well, one of the things that I had read about was that after the biggest impact on lakes besides typically septic seepage, the number two behind septic seepage in regards to pollutants is stormwater. So we said, well, maybe we should focus, because a lot of the lakes that we work with already have collection sewers around them, so the septic is not as big an influence on those lakes. So if you take that out of there, what's the biggest influence? Probably gonna be stormwater. So we wanted to just kind of go over some of the concepts of it, the problem with it, and then some potential solutions. So the first slide here just kind of, most people learned this in grade school or at least high school about the hydrologic cycle and how, rain falls and it either seeps into the ground, back in the old days before development, it would typically seep into the ground. Some of it would run off, but the majority of it would seep into the groundwater and then emanate into rivers and streams through the groundwater. Nowadays, with the more development around hardened surfaces, particularly roads, sidewalks, driveways, rooftops, you got a lot more hardened surface where you don't get that infiltration of the rainwater. It just runs off quickly into our lakes and streams. So the other thing is with the in general warming temperatures, we're getting more intense rain events. You can move to the next slide. So I'll let you go with that one, Carrie.
So, way back, if you look at, back in the 70s, they said 85% of the pollution in our surface waters was coming from point sources. So your factories that were discharging, your sewer systems that discharged, especially your combined sewer systems that were discharging sanitary to the rivers. So 85 was from those point sources, and 15% was what we're calling non-point sources, which is your pollution that's everywhere and ends up in your stormwater and discharging through those pipes. By 2010, that had flipped. 85% was coming from the storm systems, and only 15 was coming from point sources. Because of the Clean Water Act, things got regulated, and our waters ended up much cleaner. But we're still seeing what's coming in from the stormwater systems. Go ahead. And this is just mapping out the extreme precipitation events. This is percent in our area is 45% chance of becoming more frequent and intense. For Michigan data from GLESA, we're looking at through 1951 to 2017, the total precipitation's gone up 14%. Heavy storms have gone up 35%. And there's tons of models and data, but I can tell you that I saw in the last 10 to 15 years, more complaints, more flooded streets. They may not be, usually we measure rainfall events in 24 hours, and in 24 hours, they may fall in our regular storm categories. But that's first hour or two, we were seeing intensities that were crazy, above 100-year storms and causing a lot of flooding. It's getting those, we had a lot of tracking data at the city, so I could look back and say, oh yeah, this would have caused some issues, and our system's not made to handle this. So it's getting worse, and we're seeing more this area, and I probably don't even have to talk to you about this area. You've seen even closer what's been happening with all the flooding. You've had some crazy intense storms, especially a little more to the east and south. We saw on the west side of the state, Ludington had some 200-year storms. You're getting 300-year storms back to back or within a couple years. So who knows what's coming, but the best we can do to help mitigate when these storms come. And also, when they're coming, they're bringing off more pollution. They're causing more soil erosion. So go to the next slide. Even, again, the larger the red dot, the bigger the change in percent intensity that's been observed. And this is just everything we can do is, this is what we've seen to date, here's what we think might happen. Right now, everything's based on data it's called Atlas 14. The latest data there was in 2013. By the time we even started using it, it was outdated, and we were seeing different patterns. So, it's anybody's best guess exactly where it's going, except for the trend just seems to get higher and higher. Next, please. So, as we mentioned with the water cycle, everything that's outside that's in the lawns, the driveways, the streets, ends up in our storm systems. And the bigger rain events, if you're going into a ditch-type system or an open water system, when you're rushing that water to it, you're causing more and more erosion. That's got sediment, it's got everything else that's been pulled off the streets, plus you're increasing that sediment. Next, please.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're starting to see with these more intense rain events and the warmer temperatures, the other thing we mentioned is the urban heat island, which the more paved areas and concrete that you have, the warmer that temperature, it heats up faster than soil typically does. So instead of hitting that relatively cool soil, it's hitting that pavement that might be 120, 130 degrees. So it's warming that water, and then when it gets to the lake or stream, it's warming that system as well, which spurs on algae growth, not only from the nutrients that are coming in, but also from that warmer water, because algae typically grows much faster in warm water. So that's why we're seeing these spikes now, and particularly in harmful algal blooms, which are termed ones that will have toxins that might typically affect if you were to ingest it. That's primarily what the danger is. And typically what you see is small children and animals or pets that are the most prone to it, because they're most likely to either ingest it directly in the case of small children, or lick it off their fur like dogs and cats. So you can go to the next slide. So in extreme cases, you'll see these fertilizers and nutrients coming into the system. You might get a mat of algae at the surface that blocks out the light penetration, so the plants below it might die or stop growing, and then you get, based on the bacteria breaking down that dead plant material, the dead algae, as it dies off, you get that decomposing action by the bacteria. They're using up all the oxygen that's in that water, and in extreme cases, you can actually get fish kills from stormwater runoff. Next slide. And then this is a map showing an example. This is a lake called Paw Paw Lake over in southwest Michigan, where we took samples last year. We measured out the where the thermocline is and below that. So typically you have warmer water sitting on top of the cooler water, and what happens is that cooler water does not mix with the rest of the water, so it's not getting that atmospheric oxygen. And again, the bacteria are using up the oxygen, so eventually, later in the summer, you get a condition there where the those red areas shown on the lake have no oxygen at all. So you kind of get like you get a system that where you're getting more nutrients coming from the deep water, and you're getting less mixing. It'll actually, if the conditions are bad enough and the phosphorus levels are high enough in the deep water, actually diffuse through that layer. And so you'll get that introduced back into the water, and you can get algae blooms from that as well.
So Paul, last season, we had a relatively mild winter, right? Yet the areas where we often see a lot of the algae, you guys did a great job in preventing that. I mean, especially back in the canals. I mean, they were relatively clean from what
Right.
I've seen.
Yep.
So this season, we've had
Yeah.
ice on the lake longer than we've had, maybe in the
Yeah, in
last
a few
2
years, yep.
So are we less likely to see this situation?
In the early season, yes. I mean, all bets are off after that, but I think it does affect, ice cover does, give you that effect, because what happens too is if you don't have sunlight penetrating,
Right.
that algae, it overwinters and it doesn't start up as early, because it actually can start up in the winter if you don't have ice.
Right.
It's because it's using that sunlight. But yeah, that's what we're seeing on other lakes too. We're not seeing as much algae this year, so, which is a
Yeah.
good thing. And the curly pondweed is the other thing we're seeing
Right.
less of, so.
Right.
But, and the algae that we've had in the past, usually it shows up like 2 days later, we treat it, it's gone. I don't think any of that algae has been any of the harmful algae. Is this true? I mean, usually it's like.
Right, we haven't noticed it too much out
Very
here. You might get a
minimal.
little bit towards the end of the summer, but it comes and goes and it's gone within a day
And
typically,
it's not
so.
harmful algae, it is algae.
I mean, you could have small, because typically, it's not unusual to get particular microcystis, which can produce toxins. It doesn't always produce it. But if you just have small areas, they tend to blow around and get dispersed.
Yeah.
So it's not really a big,
I know-
we haven't had that issue out here, but
Yeah.
other lakes in Oakland County have had that
Okay.
issue.
Yeah, I just don't want people to think that every time they see algae, it's like.
No, yeah, I mean-
Identifying a harmful algae. Every
Yeah,
time
like
we
that
have it,
picture, if you saw something like that, yeah, don't go in that water
And
for
it's not
sure.
there
so.
long enough that we have
Yep,
plants dying and fish dying and stuff, so just
yep.
for people watching. Okay.
Next slide. I'll let you go with this, okay?
So, the other things you get in the runoff, pet and avian waste, have E. coli and nutrients, which all lead to your algal blooms. Encouraging people not to feed the geese and ducks. The geese can produce 2 pounds of waste a day. That's a lot when you multiply the numbers you can get. So anything you can do to not have enlarged populations because you're feeding them, picking up your pet waste, household cleaners, anything that you use outside, plus your fertilizers and such, can end up in the storm sewers. It's eventually going to get to the surface waters, whether that's overground runoff or through the storm systems. Next, please. Chlorides, they're another one. And chlorides are one of the few. We're going to talk about some of the nature-based solutions later, but chlorides are ones that even those can't clear up. They dissolve into the water, they dissolve completely, and they will go through soils. So anything you can do to minimize the use of chlorides. I know many public works have really reduced their usage. A lot of it's due to cost, but anything you can do to reduce usage, because they just don't go away. We have a lake in Grand Rapids that's at the bottom of a state highway, the bottom of a hill on a state highway. It's a kettle lake, and Paul was one of the first to see some of the terrible conditions there because it took that runoff for years and
Well,
years.
where's the source of chlorides?
Road salt.
Road salt.
Oh, road
Or
grinding
roads, parking lots.
Yeah. Yeah, if you got, gravel, dirt roads, county might brine them as well to
Yeah,
keep the
yeah.
dust down.
But
Even
the
like,
salt, they salt the roads, right? Yeah, because our
salt-
townships good at salting the roads very quickly and getting us out of here, and, yeah.
And it's hard. It's a hard balance between public safety and chlorides. And I've noticed a lot of the public works have reduced it a lot, but then if you get commercial parking lots, the people who plow a lot of times will charge you by the pounds of salt they applied. Sometimes you can look at a parking lot and go, there's no more snow, but it's still white. So some of the things, just encouraging people to clean up,
This is-
reuse their salt.
This is not something we test for as part of our normal.
I think we may have in the past, I'd have to check. I don't think we do it every year, but yeah, we have checked it in the past. One of the things interesting, we were just talking about this on the way over, is we've done some work for Washtenaw County, and one of the directors of the environmental systems over there, she found some data from SEMCOG back in the 70s, and they had chloride data from the Huron River. It was all along the Huron River, and it was generally, in the 70s, it was 10 to 15 parts per million, which is pretty low. But now, the data we're seeing now on a lot of the Huron River, it's over 100, so it's basically, grown exponentially since then, in the past 50 years, so.
Maybe mostly from salt?
Yeah, probably mostly from, the other thing, which I wasn't aware of before, but water softeners, if you don't maintain those properly, you don't dispose of the salt properly, that can be another way that it gets into the system as well, so. So, yeah, the big thing with chlorides is that diagram, it can cause, so there's a naturally form of thermocline on a lot of lakes. If they're deeper than like 20, 25 feet, they typically will form a thermocline during the summer. But if the chloride values are like in the hundreds, you can get what's called a chemocline. That's the lake we sampled over off in Grand Rapids that Carrie was mentioning. We were getting phosphorus numbers in the thousands, which is like wastewater
Yeah.
in the deep water, because it was never mixing.
So
Just
to
continue.
that point, I mean, our average depth is what, 6, 8 feet or something like that? So are we even getting that turnover that you're?
Yeah, you're
supposed to?
getting it in the deeper basins, for
And
sure.
does that affect the shallower areas as well, or is it
Only
just
in the spring and the
sporadic?
fall, that's when you're getting the mixing. I mean, wave action and boats can stir up the bottom in the, in the shallow areas as well.
So you think we're getting the turnover that we're supposed to have? for-
Yes, yep, we've got years of data that support that, yep,
Okay, good.
yep. Next slide. I'll let you do.
Yeah, this is my favorite picture. It's not as black as it appears in real life on the screen, but it is, that dump area there is from cleaning out catch basins at the side of the road. Jet black, slight petroleum sheen. It shocked me when I saw it next to the sewer clean out from cleaning sewer all day long, which just looked brown. This was just absolutely black from all the runoff from the roads. So it's a heck of a lot of sediment, and those basins are cleaned like every 5 years, which is pretty good. And it's the amount of sediment, I mean, we're talking hundreds of tons a year. Obviously, it's a little bigger community, but it's still proportional. We have some pretty heavy road traffic out here. The sediment covers the habitat, blocks the sunlight. Sediment also tends to carry E. coli. Even urban sediment, for some reason, still tends to carry E. coli. I don't know if it's from the birds and the dogs and all of that, but it's still an E. coli source. And then it tends to build up, especially you notice it more in a shallow lake. Also, as Paul mentioned, because you're hitting the hot pavement as opposed to when you hit the grass and filter through the soils, you're increasing the water temperature, which will increase zooplankton algal growth and make it harder on those native species.
Yeah, it
both.
promotes more plants that are tolerant of either salt or higher temperatures. So a lot of the native species aren't as tolerant of that, but species such as like Phragmites shown there, which is almost in every drainage ditch that you see, is doing really well in those conditions. Next slide.
So here's the basis of the nature-based solution. First of all, having soils that will infiltrate your water. If you've got some sandier soils, that helps immensely. But then you add native plantings so that even if you have worse soils, they help break up the soils. Over here is turf grass. You might get 3 to 4 inches of roots. Needs a lot of watering. Sometimes it can grow so dense that it's not a whole lot better than pavement. Plus, people fertilize it a lot, and there's still nutrients that can come from there. These are all native plants. So you're talking, this is 15 feet. 3 to 4 inches versus a minimum of 4 feet for most of these. So they're going to take up more water. Their roots are deeper, so they don't need as much water because they're getting what's down below more. They're going to help break up those soils and infiltrate, so you're getting more that's going through that natural soils to groundwater route, slowly getting in and cooling down. And even when it doesn't catch, it can filter through just by going through the plants. Next, please. This is an example of a rain garden and also a riparian buffer strip. Native plants help to filter along the way. Another rain garden, and just to back up, rain gardens are basically collect this runoff, put it into either an elongated swale or just a small pond-shaped area. Put the native plants in, make sure you have the right soils below, and let it soak in from there and filter through. This is actually porous pavement also, so another way to keep the runoff from going to the sewers. Next, please.
Yeah, so another thing that can promote infiltration and uptake near the shore is to put in a natural shoreline. So that top picture is from the MSU Extension course that was held last year in Stony Creek, I believe. And they, we just took a drone picture of the people that were taking that course, doing that planting, but normally you only have 1 or 2 people doing the planting, but it goes a lot faster with that many people. But it typically takes about a day or 2 to plant those and prepare the area. And then if you look below, that was one that was put in at Lake Lansing that we were involved with. The drawing is on the right there. This is at the south end of Lake Lansing for anybody that's familiar with the Lansing area. It's one of the few lakes in the Lansing area. And there's a Ingham County Park at the south end with a big beach. So this is south of that. It was just an area that was just turf grass all the way down the shores. So they, moved it back a bit to get some infiltration, also to provide some habitat. And so one of the things you have to put in a silt screen, which is that yellow floating barrier there. And also, I don't know if you can see it, but there's fencing too to keep the animals out of there, because when these plants are young, the animals will just chow on them, the deer and the geese and things like that, so.
So Paul, you've been around our lake 100 times.
Mhm.
Everybody's got a seawall for the most part.
Right,
Is
I'm gonna get
is
into that in a
practical?
minute too, but yeah, that it's definitely better overall to have, softer shorelines that absorb. So if you go to the next slide, I think it's the next slide.
Even before we go there, like, at the end of your property before your seawall, especially if you're on hills and stuff like this, you can still plant stuff that.
Yeah, you can put stuff in front of your seawall too. Yeah, that was brought up, I think, yesterday too, at one of the,
Do you guys have like recommendation for, places where you can, or, I feel like there should be a place that just sells a bunch of.
Yep, there's-
Very specific native plants that you can
yep,
plant.
so
That's good.
there's a website called Michigan Natural Shoreline Partnership. So you can either just Google that, or, I think if there's no spaces, if you just type that in, .org, it'll come up too, but, they have a list of nurseries and landscape companies that are certified to do this work. And it's a pretty big list now, like, I think there was 40 people that took it, they expanded it to 60 this year.
Mhm.
We actually have one of our landscape architects taking the course this year.
Was it Michigan Natural Shoreline? What is it called?
Natural
Partnership.
Shoreline Partnership. So it's kind of a consortium, and they have developed a certification process, so you take a course over the summer to do it. So, yeah, if you go to the next slide, we can kind of talk about the seawalls. So, in general, the problem with hardened vertical seawalls, there's kind of two issues. The one is it doesn't absorb wave energy, it reflects it back, so it can cause that reverberation. And also, particularly if you're in a narrow area, you can really get that reverberation. And also, it tends to encourage down scouring, which is, I don't know if you can see that arrow, but it basically forces, back one. It forces the energy from that wave downward.
Yeah.
And so what you get is scouring at the bottom of the seawall. And you can it can cause, the seawall to buckle. It also can create an area for a disturbed area where invasive species tend to like the disturbed areas. So that's why you'll get like Eurasian milfoil, star stonework growing in those areas. And then on the right is just kind of like what I call the suburbanite lakefront, which people like the nice turf grass all the way down to the shoreline with the hardened seawall. And if you go to the next slide, there's just some ways that you can soften that up. You take the seawall out, you got all that native vegetation. It can either be just no mow, or where you just let it go natural, or you can cultivate it and put in, like I said, the native grasses and sedges and things like that. Even shrubs and bushes are good too. And then you have more trees on your lawn, so you're getting more infiltration with that. You can have a little rain garden in your lawn, or your drain that's running off your driveway. You can have a roof drainage that has a little swale, or you can put it into a rain barrel, reuse that water for irrigating. And then off to the right, which I'm sure you guys have probably seen this, we have this in our report. It just shows the benefits of a natural shoreline.
So Paul, I live on Lagoon, and I get the heaviest, wave boats.
Right.
Isn't that going to wash away? If I were to rip my seawall out and plant
It
that,
can,
it's not gonna wash away?
when you put in a natural shoreline, you kind of have to have it evaluated, and they base like wave energy potential for the direction that it's coming from, and then boating activities taking effect. There's basically 3 different levels there's low energy, high energy, and then moderate energy. So it depends on, there's actually an index that you plug in these
Because I'm
values in
sure
it.
mine's high. I mean, I get waves, you know,
Yep, so yours
splashing
probably
3
would. So
feet over
when
it.
you get into high energy, you typically have to use more hardened structures, not seawall per se, but like big stones, rocks. You know, you can incorporate vegetation in there too, but you do have to have some structure to hold it in place, so. They also have, I don't know if it's on this or not, but there's a coir logs that kind of provide temporary barrier for wave. They're coconut, so they break down naturally. You put that in front of it so that absorbs the waves until the plants are established. So there's ways you can get around it, so. Next slide.
So when you're looking at your outfalls, other things you can do, this is an outfall, this is a storm pipe, 48-inch storm pipe that we opened up, made it, it was 1,500 feet of pipe, and we made it into 2,000 feet of naturalized stream. You can't tell because it's got the stabilization planting there, but it's now all native plantings. You rarely actually see water in it, which is kind of a shame, but it means it's doing its job and it's taking everything and soaking it in really well. If you don't want to completely open it up, don't have the space to do it, it's not always practical. This is a site in Dexter where Huron River Watershed Council coordinated, and they actually just cut their outfalls back. So they went maybe 50 to 100 feet back from where they discharge. And they put all these plantings in here. You can barely see the outfall. It's really gorgeous. It caught my eye just because it was pretty, and I went, wow, they are taking care of their outfalls, giving it, again, one more chance to soak in and filter through before it gets to the water.
So do we have any places around here that something like that could actually be done?
So, yeah, so I don't know if you want us to finish that first or.
No, I think that's
That's pretty
most
much
of
it. So, yeah, so I don't know if you remember, we're still kind of under a contract to update that interactive map. And one of the ideas we had is we could identify the storm drains and then do like an inventory of the storm drains. And then geo-reference those locations by surveying them in. And then have that as part of your GIS so you can kind of identify them. And then once we do that, the next step would be to identify potential, problem with it, or if there's solutions that could be applied to it, give you kind of some ideas. There is some money available in grants. If you go into that article, that goes more into that, because there's several different grant opportunities out there, but,
Yeah, we had a budget, like, 4 years ago, when Mike Hurst was on the board, we had a bunch of money that we were looking also to do a grant match on a natural shoreline and trying to pick a location that we can do this as a demo and stuff like that. And we bounced around like 3 different spots and never settled on a spot where we can do it, and then he left the board and then just kind of died.
Yeah, I would
It's just
suggest
like,
maybe doing that.
Yeah, we'd like to do it, but like, not on a residence property.
right,
or
it's
like-
probably one of the backlot parks or something like
Yeah,
that.
or like,
yeah.
at the time, one of the guys on the board was very much pushing for it to be towards the end of Penny Lake. There's village property like way down at the end.
Yep.
But it doesn't prove his concern, which is if there's a lot of waves and stuff, is it gonna survive, right? It's not gonna get somebody to go do it. If it's down there and it's in the end of a no-wake zone where there's never any waves, it doesn't prove anything, right? So I think we were trying to find a place on the lake where it
It's
has
gonna get some
a
wave
reasonable
in
amount of
I'll
wave
let,
action.
for
and it's-
free, I'll let you do my yard. You can
Yeah.
totally test it. And if it doesn't work, you gotta put my
But
seawall back up.
we had money, we had a budget allocated for that for years, 3 years or something. We kept bouncing around different places to go do it. And then we actually were looking at doing it here, right, this is where, one
Oh,
guy
yeah,
wanted to
down-
do it
down
down
here.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's-
waves down here. And then right here, when they were redoing this culvert to the canals, like this area.
Yeah, but
here
that's
has-
near the no-wake zone.
No, but still, there's a lot of wake that comes through here all the time. But we were just trying to find a location, and there's grant matches and stuff like this for it as well, but we never got it done. Nope, we need somebody to drive it.
Where do our storm drains go? Like where I lived before, we had the Red Run drain. It took everything like to the Clinton River, like the storm drains and the roads in our area. Where does that stormwater?
Yeah, so
We have a bunch of them that go to the lake.
a lot of that, you have to do kind of research it, either through the, now, are they an MS4 community or?
I thought you said you were becoming an MS4, gonna need to have a permit for your storm system?
I don't know what that is. It's an MSOR, what's that?
Municipal separate storm sewer system, sorry. So basically, it means you own storm drains that discharge the surface water and you're in an urbanized area. And then the state requires you to get a permit. Did I get,
Yeah, that might have been David that said that. I don't know if he shared that with everybody else, but
So I haven't
David's the
seen-
village administrator, so.
I haven't seen any I mean, I've been around the lake, but I haven't seen any spillways into our lake, which would indicate the storm drains are going directly into the lake, so.
Yeah,
it's
that's
gotta-
good.
It's
I mean,
gotta go,
that's-
I know, but it's gotta go somewhere.
Right.
I'm pretty sure we have some, there's a map that we
I
have.
thought we
where
had
all-
the-
Okay.
we got a lot
Storm
of
drains
drains.
are. I
Yeah.
can send it to you.
I know
Yeah,
it's
if there's, the other thing is if there's drawings,
Right.
you know,
to
somewhere.
show what waters,
Yeah.
where the water's coming
It's
from,
just
so
a
you can
matter
see
of-
where your
yeah,
biggest.
It's on your map.
Investigating it,
I
yeah.
have a separate PDF that has them all marked.
Does it
from-
ultimately
Like
end up
red
in our
X's
lake,
or
or does it
something.
end up in the-
Yeah, but
Okay. It's a
do you
lot
have
of
the
sites.
exits?
Yeah, where's that? Because I mean, we're in the Huron River watershed, correct?
Yeah.
So like, there's two options. Like, if we got storm drains in Wolverine Lake, they're ultimately going in our lake, which, like I said, I haven't seen a spillway entering into our lake, or they're ultimately going into the Huron River. You know, just like I said, like, all
Yeah.
of Oakland County where I came from before, it all ran into that giant Red Run drain and that goes through Madison Heights and ultimately goes in the Clinton River. So like, I mean, where the storm drains are is awesome, like, we can put those, but like, there's a huge impact difference in terms of, is it ultimately ending up in our lake, or is it ultimately going into the Huron River? Both offer environmental challenges, but like, we have a direct more impact over, you know, alleviating like runoff and pollutants if we know it's ultimately going back into our lake versus going into the Huron River.
Yeah, that's
That would be my
exactly.
question. The
I
storm
thought-
drains in the road have to be connected to something.
I ran into a guy from the DPW, he said, come over to our place, we'll show you the drawings.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they go into the lake.
Huh?
I'm pretty sure they go into the lake.
Well, But the
Just a
drawings are
question.
around.
Well,
I'm-
typically, they go to the lowest
I'm pretty
area,
sure
and in
they
this
are, too.
immediate area, they're gonna
They're
go.
gonna get natural runoff,
Yeah.
but like, the storm drains gotta.
Yeah, there's definitely some going to the lake. It's
Yes.
just a matter of identifying them and.
And then identifying
Yep.
how big
Where-
of an area is going to the different ones, so which ones would make the biggest
Where else
impact.
could they go?
Well, I
Besides
mean,
into the
there's,
lake?
so,
The river after.
there's a watershed boundary, you know, around the lake, so that would be the highest area. So if depending on which side of that boundary you're on, the water is flowing either away from the lake or towards the lake.
So I have this old map, which I can send it to you. It has them all marked, right? Piped outlets, storm
Yeah.
outlets, and it's got areas marked that don't drain into the lake and areas marked that drain into the lake.
And it's a lot of them, right?
Perfect.
Yeah, pretty much everything on the lakefront.
What year is that from, you know?
Good question, but it's from you.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, it's not,
I was gonna say, I don't think
So
that's.
say, Paul, you're holding out on me.
Yeah, so there's like 12 acres, like anything that's lakefront and anything on the south side of the lake is basically draining into the lake. The north side over here, north of Glengarry and behind Laguna does not. That
Right,
goes a different
that's
direction.
going to the river.
It's from Powell Engineering.
Oh, okay.
So Powell has.
Yeah, so you would
Village has
take
it.
something like that
Yeah.
and then pinpoint where they are in the field, and then you
Yeah.
could incorporate it into your
Into
GIS
the map,
interactive
yeah.
map,
Yeah.
so.
That's so like everything on Wolverine Lake, everything on the lakefront of Laguna,
Natural waters.
everything on the
Natural
southeast,
runoff.
the southwest side of the lake, everything in the canals, it all goes in the lake.
Yeah, it's like the storm drains.
So what I'm saying is, we still have,
Pretty sure.
we've only used like $1,500 out of that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we have money, if you want us to do that, we
Yeah.
can. I guess that's what,
Yeah, we can-
the question to the
Just
board.
add this stuff to the map that we have and then figure out where.
Because I don't know,
where to
if
mark
I mean, you necessarily need to go to the council, because it's already been
No.
approved.
Yeah,
But I
that's
just,
already approved.
we wanted to make sure you guys want to do that before we.
it. Yeah,
Is it time to ask what we do about it?
yeah.
Okay, we map it, all right. We
No,
know-
but
we-
to
we know
map
it
it-
drains into the lake.
But That's where we help identify.
Thank you.
Where our biggest bang for the buck might be.
Greenaway
with-
drain, okay, but let's go on from there.
Yeah, Greenaway drain is definitely an issue, yep.
Okay, we can go
Okay.
if you're.
Okay, yeah, let's go.
Next one, this one?
Yeah. So again, this is a little closer picture of the porous paver blocks, which if you're working on, these are things, if you see that construction's coming up on a parking area or something, or a smaller street, we had a glorified alley that we did the whole street because they had flooding problems. The rain washes through quickly, doesn't need as much salt because every time it melts, it runs right down into the blocks. Also weathers really well in the cold climate because, here you get a crack in the road, the water gets caught, you end up with a pothole. Well, the water's just draining down because you've got gravel below it and sand below that. So it's a little higher end solution, but where you can make it fit, it makes a huge difference. And then the last one is if you're looking at catch basins in the street and you have utility issues and you don't have space to do something green and pretty on top, or you don't want to maintain it because maintenance is something you got to think about when you're looking at these solutions. This will infiltrate it underground. They surround it with about 2 feet of gravel, and it fits just like any other catch basin, except for it's got that extra gravel, and you can usually sneak it in on a retrofit or where there's utilities that make anything else tight. And
You mentioned the coconut stuff. I read someplace or I've seen people are touting putting this coconut on top of the drains. Seems
Yeah,
impractical to
so
me.
coconut, it basically is like they use it 2 different ways. One, the logs they use to protect from wave energy. They also, I've seen it used on like hills and stuff too, or as like in a ditch, instead of putting in, what do they call them, check dams, they just put in a coir log,
Coir.
which acts like a check dam. And it's more like a temporary solution because a lot of times the erosion, when you first go in and do a project, before the vegetation gets established, that's when it's most vulnerable to erosion. So that's why they use that coir log. They can use it in place of like using hay or something like that on top of grass seed and stuff like that too, so.
I have also seen it as a catch basin cover.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It looks impractical to me.
Absolutely, it's going to clog up
Thank
in a
you.
heartbeat.
Thank you.
If I've got a sack that's got pretty porous holes in it, I
Need to increase the size of the DPW crew.
Yeah.
everybody would love to do that, but, that's where we try to find things that are lower maintenance. And if you're reducing, if you're doing some of these practices, it will reduce what's going to your catch basins and needs to be cleaned out later. So there is some balance in there. Next, please.
I think there's one more slide,
Yep.
yeah.
So the last thing is you can put in a mechanical filter if you have the space at the end of an outfall. It's not my favorite solution, but it works really well. I mean, it's not nature-based, but water swirls around in here, your petroleum products and your bottles come to the top, your sediments go to the bottom. You take what's in the middle that's clean and pass it through. Ideally, you pass it into somewhere else. This goes to an underground infiltration basin. And it actually, after 10 years, we saw absolutely no sediment buildup in the infiltration basin, so we pretty much doubled the life of that at least. But again, it's a way of keeping those soils out of your lake and all that sediment.
So what's the most practical and reasonable one we could do to have impact now?
So a lot of it is just, in the simplest case, if you have, I think, like Carrie mentioned, just moving it back away from the shoreline if you have an outfall, or putting in some vegetation below the outfall before it gets to the lake, so at least you're getting some uptake before you get that.
So where are all those points at that you've talked, is that on your map, Ryan, that he's talking about?
For which is this?
What
The outfall, where the storm drains flow into is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Do we have, like,
Of
the
which we have like.
locations?
But
a
they'd
lot
have
of
to
them,
be
right?
identified, that's be part of the mapping.
Like, are
thing.
we talking like 30 of them, or?
Yeah.
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 Really?
I'm just-
There's
I
also.
know it's a lot.
And another thing I look at is where the catch basins are. Do you have catch basins where we could route it into a swale before it reached the catch basin? And I, just looking at where things lie,
Yep.
could identify that would be another one that could be fairly efficient and not as much involved in doing it.
Can I bring up Greenaway
I'm
Drain
guessing like 40.
40 total, yeah.
again? I've been researching the books upstairs from 1972 on up, and Greenaway Drain keeps coming up and up and up.
Yeah,
as a
I think
problem.
it's,
And
We-
there's
we-
something that was done for $30,000 4 or 6 or something years ago, but I haven't got that far. I'm only up to 2016 or something.
yeah, we've only worked here since about 2015, I think, somewhere in that, but, yeah, that's come up a lot. We do bacteria testing there. We've had once or twice where it was high. It's, a lot of times, actually, it's other areas where we're getting the higher E. coli counts. But I do think that is, I'd like to determine the size of the drainage area there. I think it is bigger
Yeah.
than most of the other ones around the lake.
There was something done, $30,000 was spent, and each time I drive down that street, I look at the drain, and when it's raining, it's dirty coming over
Yeah.
there. And there's a whole lot of marsh, and I guess it's filtering through a marsh, right? That's a
Could,
filter.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's filtering through a marsh, and it'd be good to know what size that marsh is. And if we could put a wall, 6 inches of dirt around it, would make it a lot more. I don't
Get
know.
more detention.
Greenaway
Yeah.
Drain, I'm still searching.
Yep. Yeah, you probably know as much as I do about it
Oh,
because,
okay.
yeah.
Oh, I'm in trouble now. Jeez, oh, man.
But I know it has come up at several meetings and,
It comes
Yep.
up, it comes up every year. We
Yep.
gotta do something about Greenaway Drain.
So Paul, can you guys put together a plan, like the minimum we can do right now? I mean, what are the high target
yeah, I think,
areas that we could actually
just doing
work
an
on?
inventory, getting sizes, approximate drainage area, that type of thing, and then identifying them on the GIS layer is important too, because then you basically have that database, the baseline of that database, and now you can build on that
Yeah,
with your,
so I'm just looking
with
at
your
something from
information.
David. So the map that we have is from 2023, so it's
Oh, it's
recent.
pretty accurate,
He said
huh?
maintaining the map is one of the requirements of the municipal storm sewer system permit from the state of Michigan. And he said for our particular drains, cleaning the catch basins and storm drains, the village cleans them pretty much on an annual basis. Says the smaller catch basins and storm drains are cleaned by DPW by hand, and the larger ones are cleaned by a contractor with a Vector truck.
I was gonna say they probably hire
Yeah.
a contractor.
Says we have a line item in both our major road fund and our local road fund for drainage structure cleaning on a regular basis.
So then beyond that, what do we need to do?
Yeah, so I mean, it would depend on a case-by-case basis. Carrie's more of an expert at that than I am.
So once we get everything so it can be visualized in a map, we can recommend project locations and.
Yeah, and you can
where's-
prioritize things.
So I'd like to
based-
see the most high-impact ones
Yep.
that we can do.
Yep.
We can't do
Absolutely.
That would be your
everything. So
prioritization,
what
yep.
makes the best sense to have the biggest impact?
And that's exactly, as soon as we look at each area and how much it collects from, and maybe the size of, what's going on in that area,
Mhm.
then we can say, okay, this one's taking a lot, and there's an opportunity, so.
Okay, well, what do we need to do to get that moving?
Well, let me get with David and see if the map that we have is already the latest version of it, and then maybe we can get the actual information flowing. Like I said, this map.
Yeah, the
is
more
probably
information you
recent.
have, the less time you have to spend on that aspect of
Yeah.
it, so,
Yeah,
yep.
and then we could start worrying about if we're gonna do anything or what we wanna do versus trying to figure out where things are, so I can see.
Because we talked about this about a year ago, and I asked you, I said, okay, what are the major problems we have, and what are the ones that are the most impactful that we can do something with? And we talked about it, but we never did anything with it, so now we've got this information, let's do something with it.
Okay.
I don't want to just talk about it, I want to see if we can do something.
Yeah, so Ryan, why don't you get with David and, yeah,
Okay.
just,
Yep,
then
I
we
just
can-
emailed them. I'll see if I can get something later and then follow up with you guys in email on at least locations of stuff, and we can see which ones carry the most surface area to one
Mhm.
drain or something, or see what's there.
Yeah, and that combined with, does it look like there's an opportunity area where we can implement something?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Greenaway Drain drains 3,400 acres,
yeah, that's a pretty big area.
okay? 1,700 acres come from Walled Lake, 800 come from Wolverine Lake.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's and
Okay.
stuff.
Yep.
It's a lot of area. And it's old, and they've been putting in more pavement. That was one of the discussions.
So what are our action items on this then, Ryan? What do you want to do? You're going to check with, you're going to follow up with David?
Yeah, I think at least let's get the latest map and make sure that it's good, and then I can send it over to both.
Because it sounds like all they need is the storm drains and where they're ending up.
Yeah, I think we have it.
And we have that.
Yeah.
I know we have, I've seen it before. Okay.
All right. And then just, I don't know if, just to update you, Jared did, and his wife had a baby girl last Friday, so he's on paternity leave until May 1. His first survey is supposed to be around May 14, pending the weather and stuff. But if you have any concerns before that, you can just call me. I'm filling in for Jared for the
Okay.
time being, so.
Well, we
All right.
scoured the lake last weekend.
Yeah, which
No
one?
problems yet.
Yeah, usually do
Yeah, I
first day
think-
treatment around the 15th or
I
something.
think our people sampled it last week too and said it looked pretty good.
Yeah,
so.
and then it's kind of the same thing at the beginning, is paying extra attention to those canals, and,
Yep.
you know, that we only have a certain window in May where we can use the concrete
Exactly.
stuff, which
Yep.
has worked in the past couple of years, so as long as we keep on a similar schedule, I think we'll be all right.
All right.
Like that, the early May treatment, and trying to get it in before anything gets too bad in the canals is usually the worst thing. And then my guess is the first few weeks of May and June, we'll get a pop-ups of small things of allergies like we always do, and then hopefully it's good from there.
Okay, so you're going to follow with David.
Yeah,
And
I
then
did.
you're going to find out what, and we're going to get with Paul to see what are the higher impact areas?
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Sounds good.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys emailed this presentation already, I believe, correct? Okay, yeah, send it over. One of the things we should think about, I guess, all like, you know, when you say like everything ends up in there, right? So anything that's like hazardous waste and oil and stuff like that that you could do recycling with. The village doesn't have any like hazardous waste recycling programs. You know, you have to like go to a facility or something like that, so
Yeah.
we could think about that if you wanna like actually do some kind of active recycling program of oils and all the shit you don't wanna end up in the lake, you know? Well, I mean. So, yeah, I think we're part of some coalition within Walled Lake that they have events, but they don't do one in the village, so maybe we could just link up and get something in the village or get some information out or something, so we can look into that too.
So you're going to look into that?
Yeah.
Well, I know,
I could do it.
as far as like hazardous waste, oil and coolant, you can go like to the Murray's.
Yeah.
They take all that.
Mhm.
And then batteries, you can take to a lot of places and they'll give you like $10
Mhm.
for them.
Mhm.
That helps a little bit with those types of.
Yeah, that's all the other stuff, it's paints and paint thinners and
Right.
random cleaning chemicals and all
Yeah.
the stuff that I could go in my garage and I got a bunch of stuff that I know I can't throw out and I haven't done anything with it.
Oh, yeah, the
Right.
paint, you're supposed
That-
to
that's
mix
what
it
we
with
need.
kitty litter.
That's what we need.
I think there's like a couple of them, I think we're a part of something, I think Walled Lake in general is, so I have to go get some information.
Well, you know what, let's look at that and then see if there's something we put on the board, the electric
Yeah.
board out there or on the website. All right.
Okay, all right, let's keep moving. Thank you for coming in. Have a safe drive home.
Thank
I know
you,
got
thank
a
you.
Thanks,
decent
guys.
commute in front of you, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so the next up, new business, we're sitting at 8, so we're gonna move through here. So, board applicant David, who is here and has been listening and waiting patiently. So we do have an application here, we have a spot. So Dave, I've reviewed most of this just because it came to us already in email. So I guess, David, you want to come up here?
David Layburn, 2335 Shaken. Great Away Drain. We went through lawsuits with Wall Lake, but the history on it, you would not believe. We spent so many days and hours and so forth. But anyhow, I hope we're still testing that drain. Because if we're not, we're making a big mistake.
Okay, so I guess tell us a little bit about yourself, although we do know who you are and you've been in here before, and we've got a pretty extensive write-up here, so I guess give us a little bit of information about yourself.
Well, I came into the village in 1975, and the police chief at that time recommended that I join the water team, and I did. And in the process, we decided to put in place a water management board, and I was the first chairman for the water management board. We accomplished a lot. We took out over thousands of stumps on the lake. Had to go to Lansing many times to convince them to allow us to lower the lake by 5 feet. And they only wanted to give us 2.5 feet. So the next time we went, I decided to make the appointment for 4:30 on a Friday. And we argued for 15, 20 minutes, and they only would give us 2.5 feet. And all of a sudden I said, well, I'll tell you what, I like the idea of one of you guys, and I'm not sure which one of you guys from DNR said that we should be an experimental lake. And they said, oh, okay, we'll go along with it. So they gave us the 5 feet in order to get the stumps out. Actually, nobody said that, but I just threw it because I noticed those guys like to have the idea come from their brains versus from us. I took the whole board with us. So we made a huge statement. The other thing is, when I studied on the board, I didn't study what was going on in Michigan, because there's 50 states, and a lot of the ideas that I was getting and feeding to the board were from different states, because certain states have better, more advanced information about the lakes, like Indiana. All of a sudden, they're having 200 foot towards the shore versus our 100 foot. Why are they doing that? Well, the new boats that are coming out, they're throwing wakes way bigger. And if you don't have a seawall, it's going to wipe out that yard. So they're a little bit more advanced than we are in that respect. I was in Indiana with a college buddy at his house, and July 3rd or 4th, and all of a sudden we see all these tiki kettles around. And that was kind of cool. So at that time, we only had boat parades. And I came back and recommended the Water Management Board if we could do something like that. We did. 30-some years later, we're still doing it. It doesn't, it creates camaraderie and good. We also started, even though it wasn't the Water Management Board, where we had a lady that every time we had a new resident in the village, go and give them a goodie and give them some information about the village and so forth. And that was a nice welcoming program we started. At that time, we seemed to have a little bit closer relationships with our neighbors. It seems like nowadays everybody seems to want to do their own thing, regardless if it's affecting a person or not. But you got to have rules if you want a good harmony in the community. This is my, by the time I was 29, I had bought 3 houses, 2 of them on Oak Island, 1 in Ohio, and I started building my house on Wolverine Lake. That was 4 houses. I worked for the company for 33 years, a very good company, and probably that was part of my fault in being aggressive in finding out what goes on in the village. Because my job was to find out what was going right and what was going wrong and corrected it. And after 33 years, I retired. Took 5 years with a 40-foot motorhome and took my family all over the United States every time they were out of school. I have 2 boys. They got 3 state championship rings for me for football and lacrosse, and 1 Ivy League where Yale beat Harvard to get the championship. One of the things that my son said to me when he was in junior high, Dad, this is the greatest place to live. We have everything we want. He says, when I have a family, I'm going to raise them on Wolverine Lake. Well, he is. On Wolverine Lake, I'm shaking. So those kids, that's another thing we started. Kids are cool parade in our neighborhood. All the kids on July 3rd would decorate their bicycles and wagons and everything else, and the parents would cook up all kinds of trees for them and just meet out there. We would invite the police department, the fire department. It was a fun time for the neighborhood.
Okay, from I guess, what's your take on not the history, but what's going on now,
You gotta-
where we're going?
I'm sorry, you
et
got to
cetera?
talk a little bit louder.
I said, what's your take on like, why are you applying to the board? What are you intending
Well,
to do, et cetera?
one of the
What-
things
what are
I
the issues
noticed
you're
is
concerned
that-
about?
One of the things I noticed is the harvester. And I think we can help whoever's, I'm not criticizing the guy because he's only as good as what he is given. But we can get some equipment to help him. For an example, on my boat, I had one of those readers that could tell me the depth of the lake and also how high the weeds are. And I see them going up and down, and if the lake bottom is 8 foot down there, he shouldn't be down only 2 feet. He should be able to see the iPad in front of him, that he can go down 5 feet or 6 feet. Or also follow a pattern. The way we had it broken down is, as you can see, Benstein, that was one area, Oak Island was another area, and Penny Lake. And the key on running the harvester is that darn thing's got to go forward all the time. Because when we had people to help us get the most out of the machine, he asked us, does anybody seen a corn harvester? And yeah, my father-in-law was a farmer. He says, well, how do you drive it? Do you drive it back and forth? I said, no, only forward. He says, that's exactly how you're going to run the harvester. I've seen the harvester spend 4 hours going back and forth on 5 homes on the lake. That's not productive. That whole harvester should be going all the way around, all the way around. And then the other thing is, how many dump sites do we have now? Does anybody know?
3, 2 or 3.
2 or 3.
2. Well, we had 3 way back then. One in Penny Lake and the other 2 on the main lake. My question is, why don't we have one in Penny Lake? I can tell you why, but there's also another area we can put it in. Because he is spending so much time going back and forth, that's non-productive time. We're wasting time.
Well, I think with Progressive, they highlight the areas that that they go to. I think it's because they can only harvest the invasive species, so they go to certain areas because they flag certain areas in the lake. Might be why they concentrate back and forth, because if they circle the lake, the whole lake isn't warranted for harvesting, from my understanding.
Well, I'll tell you what, 2 years ago, July 3rd, from Benstein all the way down to Penny Lake, we had weeds all the way to the top, about 200 feet from the shore. Because I took the jet ski, and I had to get off the jet ski and clean the bottom twice.
Well, I
But
think it
anyhow,
depends on if they're.
those are some-
When was that?
2 years ago.
When the harvester was not working?
No, it was working,
It had
because I
some,
pulled the paperwork to see how much they pulled out.
okay, there was a year, I thought, wasn't it 2 years ago
Well,
when we
let me
had
put it
like,
this
No,
way.
it was a while ago.
When July 3rd was,
It's 2 or 3.
it was July 3rd. On, I think it was Tuesday, but I'll check it. I got the paperwork. I'll bring it next time if you want me to.
Okay.
I see that you your bucket list.
Yes.
I was kind of trying to read through the Wolverine Lake Police Department and the Oakland County. Are you suggesting that you want to see Oakland County on the lake? Is that what you're?
No, no. What I'm saying is, I always evaluate everything. I do surveys, and I use FOIA a lot to find out information. And I found out that I pulled records to see what kind of emergency calls we get from 12 o'clock until 6 o'clock and so forth. There's nothing happening. So I recommend we stop our own dispatch. Well, obviously it worked because now you have dispatch from them. The other thing is, Commerce Township has built such a huge tax roll that now we're not getting any of those benefits. Versus way back in the 70s, those were all farms. They were hurting for tax dollars. Now, look at all the stores we got here compared to what we used to. I mean, all I'm saying is, there's nothing wrong for us to question a lot of these things to see if we can make it better. If it works, people are gonna like it. If they don't, no. And, you know, some of those things like I flew to Florida for the sonar. We couldn't do it in Michigan because they never used it, but Florida did, extremely. I brought all the information. One of the fellows that was against the chemicals, I gave him all the paperwork and said, look, I got 2 little kids. I want you to go through these and tell me if they're safe to put on there, because I don't want to recommend anything that might hurt my kids. Well, the guy was against the chemicals, the first meeting. After I gave him all the information, he came back, he stood up, and he says, we should go with sonar. It's great. It was great because the people put me right into council. They did a survey, right, petition and so forth. So I'm not one just to look what's going on here. I'm looking, I took my family to 37 states. We've seen a lot of communities, and a lot of them had a lot of good ideas. And it's shameful we can't bring some of those ideas here. We have a great community, there's no question about it, but we can make it even better.
Okay.
So to clarify, you're talking about the police department, not the boat, not the lake? I guess I didn't really understand the Wolverine Lake rated 50% or Oakland County.
No,
rated-
okay.
Well, I didn't know, is
The
that?
police departments send all their information that they have of all the activities that they do to a central location. I don't know where they send them.
But
and
is this,
what
is this
happened
the
is-
lake or is this,
No, this is for the whole police department.
okay.
And then Oakland County was ranked 100%. They have all the resources. We ranked 50%. Now, how can you make us get more? Well, we don't have enough. We're a bedroom community. We don't have shoplifters, you know, type of deal. You have a commercial properties and so forth. So, you know, there's a lot of things that our policemen. But having said that, did you know that people can take the boat license over the internet from Oakland County?
What do you mean?
Yeah, they do. So in other words, when I had the grandchildren over, one of the kids jumped on a jet ski, went to the police officer to ask him on the lake a question. And he asked him, do you have a license? No. Well, the police comes over and says, David, I called the chief. He says, well, I probably should give you a ticket, but the chief said, well, whatever Dave wants, he can have. I don't work that way. What I did was take that kid with me the next day at work. I gave him an office, put him on the computer, and he got his license. And then that night on the way home, we stopped at the police station for him to give his license. So go through the police department and see if there's anything other than telling you to check with the office when the test is going to be given for them. They should have it on the website. They should have the instructions in the website. If you are expecting company and you expect to take your jet ski for a ride, you better have a license. And here it is.
Okay, we're gonna button this up. So, just further information, right, for everybody on the board. Obviously, you've been on the board before, you've been on council before. You were in here in 2022. We did send a 3-1 vote to add you to the board in June of 2022. It went to council. David was not added to the board in July of 2022. It was disallowed on a vote 5-2. I'll say my own thing, and then you guys can decide if you want to make a motion to add him or not. I went back and watched that video. I've watched the video from 2022, last month when you were here, when I wasn't here. Previous encounters with council and with the board, obviously the complaints that you've brought in multiple times relative to the docks and the parks. Right now, I'm not going to make a motion to add him to the board. You guys feel free, and we'll do a vote for it. I actually, in the videos, your approach doesn't seem like something that would add to the collaboration on this board, to be honest. So for you guys can do what you want and make a motion. We can take a vote, go to council. We recommend on this board whether people should be added or not, but we don't actually decide. So what we do is add a recommendation. We do a roll call vote. It goes to council, and council decides on who gets added or who doesn't. We do have an open spot, so that's for us to decide if we want to add or not.
The only thing I have to say for myself is, if you had an issue with me, why don't you give me a call and come over to the house, show you, because I didn't show you the other side. I only showed you what I was doing.
For what is this for? Specifically?
All I can say is, if you had some issues with me, why don't you come over to the house and ask me, hey, David, I heard you about the park. Tell me more about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because those people asked me to help them
Okay.
get a guy that didn't belong there.
Mm-hmm. I've seen it. I mean, we actually were just out on the lake the other day doing the goose thing. We drove by and.
But that's the way you find out about people. You
Mhm.
talk to
Sure.
them directly.
Sure. Understood.
But you should know that the Water Management Board doesn't have the authority to do anything about that, right? It's council, and did council not invite you there to bring up your issue with them, and you declined to attend?
No, I didn't decline. Nobody asked me to go there. I had a 2-hour meeting with the chief about that program,
Yeah.
okay? The chief doesn't know very much about the lake. Nice guy, and I like to give him a fair chance.
Could you go to the mic? They need to hear you on the.
I can't hear you guys.
Oh,
yeah,
we'll talk
but they
about it,
just need to
sorry.
be able to hear when you talk about it.
Sorry, we'll talk about it, sorry.
Okay, there you go. That works.
If you want to know about that thing,
Mhm.
okay, we had Donnelly put his boat and his rack in
Mhm.
the park.
Mhm.
The park people asked me to help them to get them off, because I was a counselor at that time. I never refused anybody that came into the council if they needed help with their problem.
Mhm.
And sometimes I had to tell them, hey, the village is right on this one. That's a road. You can't say they can't park there. But regardless, put that there. We talked him to get off of it. He gave walkie-talkies to the chief for the police department. In return, he got to put his boat into the park that doesn't belong to the park. He's not even there. He belongs to Solano Park, okay? And then DNR came out and provided him a violation. And DNR wanted a survey to show that he has a right to put his dock there. And he didn't. Unfortunately, Ellsworth and him were friends. And
Right.
they,
I could really appreciate what you've done.
pardon me?
I can really appreciate what you've done for this village all the years, but I don't think you're a mix for this board. From what I've seen and from.
Well, let's just do the vote. Does anybody want to do a motion to add David to the board?
No.
So we have no motions to add to the board. So with that, there's no vote to add you to the board. So although we appreciate it, we understand the concern, we appreciate what you've done in the community, at this point, we're not going to make a motion to add you to the board. So that's where we are for this particular topic tonight. Okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service, Dave.
Okay, the next topic for new business is the goose egg program. Okay, so the goose egg program, just for everybody's update, we have a permit through the DNR for a goose egg roundup. We exercise this every year. We get to go out under permit and do a goose nest destruction. So for people in the village that are watching, we did this on Saturday? When was that, Rob?
Sunday.
We went out on Sunday. We got 86 eggs on Sunday, which is quite significant. The majority of them were down on the Benstein area. That area is like,
As someone who lives in that area, thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
it's like the
thank you.
Ritz-Carlton for geese down there. So we spent a lot of time down on that side. We got a whole lot down there, and then we got a couple on Penny Lake. Wasn't much on Penny Lake. A couple back in the canal, but vast majority down over by the Benstein area. 86 collected out of 17 nests.
Did you do the nest
We
destruction?
just
So we
did
did the
the
nest
nest
destruction
destruction,
too.
yes,
I mostly kicked her, I had a thing I broke them up with and stuff like this, so, which is really good. So last year, 2024, on the first time around, we got 46. 2023, when Rob and I did it last time, we got 81. So 86 is pretty good. It's not the high, unfortunately. I'm looking back in 2017, so somebody got 108.
Man, I can't wait to do the goose count and see how it.
But no, over the years, the goose count has been fairly
That's
stable,
what I'm
but
saying.
we're doing
We-
this.
We had 40 a year ago, you got 80,
Yeah.
so I'm fired up to go count those geese.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So, yeah.
quite an event to go do, and we 3 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours. We were out there
Oh, at least 3.
3 hours.
3 plus.
So we will do another one. The other date for this is in how many weeks? Let me just see.
What, end of April up to May 8th, is that the last date that David said?
Yeah, let me just see. And I think.
Because you and I aren't here that last weekend in April, if I remember.
Okay, it starts, this is, the weekends of April 11th and 25th were the recommended days, so we went out actually the 15th or
Yeah.
something, and then, so probably the weekend following the 25th or something, we'll try and get out. So I'll send a note to people, I don't know if I'm gonna be here
What date are you looking at?
past the 25th, I guess.
Wasn't it the 8th, May 8th weekend?
No,
If that's a weekend?
no, it's due no later than May 8th. The suggested dates are the weekends of April 11th and April 25th.
Right.
So April 11th, April 25th. So let me just get a calendar up. The 25th goes where?
April
That's the
25th.
next weekend. That's next weekend.
Yeah, so it's not going to be next weekend. So it'd be the week after that would probably be when we would go back out, if we were to go back out.
You wouldn't have liked my rowboat, by the way.
So, yeah, it'd be like
You
the-
were able to get a boat with a little.
It ended up being like the
motors.
first weekend of May, right? So I don't know if I'll be able to do it. I'll check, but ideally we would get, I don't know if Rob's gonna be around to do it, but we'll coordinate maybe over email. I borrowed a boat from my buddy. Worked out pretty well. We just hitched it to the back of my pontoon boat, drove around, got out, went into the little flat bottom boat.
So we take the pontoon boat, we dock it, and then we take the little
Oh, you can borrow
one.
my rowboat. excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we
I
took.
thought you were gonna take off from my dock. and
No, we-
go all the way
no,
around the
no,
lake.
no,
Just-
we hitched-
I figure you
Yeah.
guys would really hate me if you ended up in the middle of the lake.
No, we hitched it to the pontoon boat, and then we
Oh.
drive the pontoon boat down there,
Oh,
anchor the
oh,
pontoon
oh.
boat, go on the little boat,
You
do all
can
the
borrow
stuff.
my boat.
And we had 2 batteries, which was a good thing, because
Yeah.
we ran out of juice on the first battery,
Yeah.
so.
So, anyway, we'll schedule something else, not this following weekend, maybe the one after that or something, and then I'll see if we can get out there again. I mean, last year, they went out the second time, or 2 years ago, they didn't get any the second time around, so it's like, it's hit or miss, it's probably not as much work, but, we'll coordinate it over
But it's
email.
fun, good
It's
camaraderie.
It's not a bad time. It's an interesting thing to do. It's a lot of work. but-
Because you have to collect them, right?
You c- Yeah,
You're
physically
gonna
get
pick
the
them up
eggs.
and put them in a
Yeah.
basket, and we put them in a big container, and
Yeah, it's not so bad. You-
then put them in
and-
a garbage bag and
and
put them by the dumpster out here.
The last time we were doing it, like, when I would go to the goose nest, like the goose is on the nest, right? So you gotta like work your way in there, right?
They're
And
not nice.
yeah, of course, they're not trying to leave, but, then this time we were going up to one and Rob just took the paddle and just went like this and just splashed a little bit onto the goose and just took
Just
off like that.
splash it with water.
So it's like
nothing
no
ran away.
confrontation anymore.
Right.
The goose doesn't take off.
Something like what?
Didn't hurt it, just.
No
Just-
confrontation anymore. So if the goose is still on the nest, just hit a
Splash 'em.
hit a little oar, a little bit of water on it, takes off, and you just walk up there and take it. It was significantly easier last time where it was like a little bit more confrontational.
That's a good little tactic.
Yeah, it's surprised it took us 2 years to think of it. Anyway.
All right.
We got it done. So goose roundup, it happened. All right, comments from the last meeting. You kind of alluded to it just now, but David's no longer here. But when he goes home and inevitably watches it, let's just address his concerns. So
Okay.
just read this verbatim. This is from David.
So from Paul.
Oh, this is from Paul.
So Paul Snyder followed up on Mr. Laborn's comments from last week regarding the boat and the dock over there. So Paul had said he was offered and declined the opportunity to make a presentation to the village council. He did have some email exchanges with Chief Sovic to discuss his concerns, and that we acknowledge his concerns, but we are only an advisory board to the village council, so we as the Water Management Board don't have any authority to do anything about the issue which he was describing. But if any point the village council assigns us to move forward and gather additional information for his concerns, we can do so. But until then, we are not inclined to act independently of council direction. So, and the other thing I would say too is that, other than his complaint about that particular issue, we've heard nothing over the last few years about that particular issue. So, again, again, the point is that we don't have the authority to make any decisions about that. So, again, we would need council to weigh in on that issue if needed.
Okay, moving on, admin report, current lake level. So current lake level, it's about just over 4.5 inches low right now. So it is slowly filling, but not quite full yet. We look to try and get the lake to the target level by May 1st. So basically, we're in rain capture mode at the moment, but if we get much closer to May 1st or too close to May 1st or just after it, we'll start running the pumps to fill it up. So it is still a little bit low right now, but there's rain in the forecast for this weekend. Usually, I don't think we're going to have to run the pumps to get it full, but we're about 4.5 inches shy right now. Noteworthy complaints from the village. Nothing new that I know of. Somebody did send an email about a goose nest that they'd like us to go take care of, which David forwarded along, so I'll probably take care of that next time. Outside of that, I don't know of any complaints. You guys hear anything? Nope. All right, key date review. We're sitting here in April. Goose destruction has occurred. That was this last weekend. As we just had with Progressive here, they'll do the first survey. They did it in the beginning of April, and usually our first treatments for the lake are around May 15th. We'll try and get a treatment into the canals for sure before the end of May. because the specific chemical we use there is only good in May. Lake level targeted by May 1st. And then our safety fair is going to be May 24th. Is that the date? May 24th is going to be the safety fair.
That's Saturday of Memorial Day weekend,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, safety fair. There's a boater safety course, I think. Wasn't it posted on the sign? Do you guys recall?
I know there is one. We discussed it last meeting, I think.
Today's the 16th. Or May 16th. So I think everybody should look. I believe there's an upcoming boater safety course in May. There's information on the sign outside. I don't have the date in front of me, but be aware of that. Okay. All right, shrink wrap recycling program.
Yes, okay, so we did purchase, we got approval from the council, and thank you to them for approving the recycling bags. I did distribute 140 flyers last weekend through the village. We've had 33 people so far come in and get bags, so I'd just like to remind the village, anyone listening, to come and get up the bag.
The bag's already here?
The bags are here, they were
Are
here
they?
last Friday.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
I need one. I'll be
Yeah.
here.
They were last Friday, so the bags are here. And they will be, so you can drop them off May 10th, 11th, or 12th, and there will be a designated area back by the storage areas back there. And then, so you can drop it off those 3 days, and then the recycling center will come back and pick them up that following Tuesday, which I think is the 13th of May. So please, if you haven't already, go get your bag here at the village. It's between 9 and 5, Monday through Friday.
And a reminder, you can fit usually more than one boat.
Yeah, you
Oh,
can,
yeah.
yeah, they're big.
Easily
so
2 boats.
You can
I've
fit,
had 3 and 4 in there before, so.
yeah, you can fit multiple boats unless you got a really large size one. But yeah, you can fit multiple watercraft in there. Yep.
Okay, good. Next thing is safety fair. So I didn't listen to the entire meeting from last week, so I don't know what you guys specifically covered. But we could kind of run through at least the assignments that I have, and then see if we have any updates or if we need to address anything. And then we do have one more meeting before that. So I guess first, starting with the date, we're good on that. The 24th, we're going to do a combo. So did you talk to anybody from Parks and Rec on?
I did email, can you remember her name? I did email somebody from Parks and Rec. I have not heard back yet.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember what the,
I mean, regardless, we're going to be able to do it on the same day. It's just we
Yeah.
should help coordinate with them.
right.
Food, last time we just did the hot dogs. I don't know if we're going to do that again, or what's your thoughts on food?
So, I was thinking about that, and with the food, I was thinking, I wonder if we should just be a part of it this year round, because there's gonna be undoubtedly a lot more people. And, we'll run through it real fast. I don't know if we wanna get food and then just run out real fast, or just kind of observe and do some of the other events.
I'm open. I don't know that we need to have food if it's a large group.
Yeah, I think
right.
I think we should.
Because then we're going to deal with the runners as well, right?
Yeah,
So,
not that I think a
like-
bunch of runners trying to scarf a hot dog and run a 5K, but.
Yeah, like have it holding out, like the drinks, have a hot dog.
They're drinking a hot dog to go. No, I don't think so. So we can, that's your call. You tell me what you want to do. It's just the coordination of that if we're going to do something.
I think-
Maybe we should just go get a bunch of Gatorades for the runners or something.
Well, how do we know they won't have that already, though? Is-
Parks, yeah, we got to get with Parks.
Yeah, so I will find out about
Well,
that.
we do have money allocated to this that we can decide if we want to do.
Well, I think, yeah, we could definitely do Gatorades or
Yeah,
something.
do something, you know.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a hot dog.
Right.
But, so I guess food plan, whatever that happens to be.
Yeah, we could definitely do some drinks.
You were bounce house dude.
So do we still want to do that?
Yeah.
All right.
I think so.
All right,
That's-
I
that's
did
key.
not check into it, but I will.
All
All
right.
right, I'll.
You have
I'll make-
less than a month,
Yeah, it's
or you
okay.
have a little more than a month, I lied. So bounce house dude, that's
All
on you.
right, yes. Bounce house.
And music, you're the music man.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
I will add that bounce house to make, I didn't add that when I emailed her, so I will
Yeah.
add that note
Okay,
too.
and
Yeah,
then,
would you just let her know if she's okay with that? And
Yeah.
then let me know sooner rather than later.
Mhm.
all right, and then you were on police boat?
Yep,
That's
they're
squared
coming.
away?
Yep,
And then you're still trivia man?
that's right.
You're saying you're gonna up the trivia game somehow?
Yep, second year.
Okay, and not tying?
Yep.
You're gonna do that still, right? You're
That's a
gonna
little
build
plank
something?
with a little class
Yep.
inside of it, little ropes tied to it.
Yep, you're gonna do that.
Pretty fun little thing.
All right. Snyder did send something on ice vest and ice safety. I didn't get a chance to read that, but maybe we can have a little station with that. I'll have to go and see what Snyder was. The casting competition I'm on, the life jackets I'm on. Rob, you're on the signs.
On the what?
On the signs.
Signs.
What signs?
Put the signs up.
On the.
Drive
the
around the
Saturday.
village, put the signs up.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, you're on the
I
signs.
forgot about those.
See, you got a pile of stuff. You can allocate to somebody else
It's
if you
like
want.
30, 29. So by the way, when I put the flyers in all the places, I clocked on my bike 29.3 miles all around the village.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, but you don't have to do that for this. This, you just put the signs on the crossroads.
I know, I just wanted to
You're talking
tell
about
you,
the
I just wanted to
bicycle or
tell
the
you, I
motorbike?
wouldn't have thought I would have got 30 miles just riding around the village, but I
Oh, so
I
this
did.
bicycle,
Bicycle.
yeah, not
Bike.
motorbike.
Not motorcycle.
No,
That's a
I
little
was
ride.
like 30 miles, 30
Okay.
miles.
So, I think everybody is at least still acknowledging what their assignment is and saying they're gonna get it accomplished, so I think we're good. All right.
Glad you remind me of the signs.
Okay. Next item was fish stocking. I don't think that there's anything there, but if you're here, I did want to talk about the fish housing, fish sticks thing. I sent you the, if we want to put something, we can throw something back in the lake, build something. I don't know
The
what we
thing
did
is, like,
last.
this year, like, if you remember, like, discussion I had, is they wanna do like a 2-year.
No, not the fish stocking. Remember the,
The fish sticks.
Fish sticks.
yeah.
Yeah, but my point was, like, with the budget this year would have been where we would allocate our funds for actual fish. Like,
Mhm.
then the following year would be a off cycle of putting fish in the lake. That would be where we would look to increase the habitat.
I mean, we could do it whenever. We haven't even submitted our budget yet
Okay,
for right
okay,
now.
I was
So,
just,
like-
that was my understanding, is
Yeah.
that on the mounds. And like the conversation I had with the DNR guy, he was like, you don't wanna overstock, so his thought was,
Yeah.
you stocked last year, so this year if you've got money, he's
Mhm.
like, look to put this fish sticks in,
Mhm.
use your money for that,
Mhm.
and then the following year, which is this year, but if we had.
I don't think that they have to be related. I mean, if there's something that you think you want to look into,
Oh,
right? and
absolutely.
Then we can.
Like, they're
add-
actually pretty fired up about it, because they had just piloted the program in a couple of private lakes.
Yeah.
And I didn't entertain
But-
a huge discussion on it,
Yeah.
because, I was planning this year would be, put the fish in the lake cycle.
So that, I mean, there's permits that have to happen, and then like, they have the fish sticks like on the shore type of thing, and then they have what we had, which was like the habitats that you basically drop in. So, I think we can add something if it's something you want to actually.
Well, I
look
will
into.
email the guy. He was, like I said, he was fired up about it, and his whole big thing was, why they thought it was such a good idea for us is what was brought up earlier, is the large amount of seawall
Mhm.
we have. So these would be put, I mean, I don't know where we have a lot of natural shore exposed, but these would go in those areas, not.
Right,
Yeah, what we had before though was not at the shoreline, it was
Right.
like at the beginning.
Yeah, you sent me the map, you showed me.
It was like at the beginning of the drop-ins in all
Just
the
like
pizza.
squares.
Or by
right?
the Mallow Beach, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember where they all were. There was like 4 or 5.
Yeah, you sent me a map. I'm
And a
gonna
permit.
try when I got my boat back in, I have a pretty good sonar on my boat, I'm gonna go see if there's anything down there, so.
Okay, so I would say, I would probably have to go maybe revisit the budget as well real quick. So I forgot to add that to the agenda, but yeah, I don't think we have to do it independent of fish stocking.
Okay.
I think we can do it independent of fish stocking if it's
I
something you
will,
want to do. I'd rather like, say we're gonna do something, get the money and actually do it though.
I will have, next meeting, I'll have some information.
Okay.
On that,
Okay.
on the whole aspect of it, the fish and the habitat.
Okay. Plant control of invasive species, I don't have anything there, anybody, it's too
No.
low for this. Okay. Harvester discussion. I think we have something here.
Yeah,
All right, what do you got?
that's about all I got to say.
Give us a summary.
Give us a summary. Tell us what's up.
I've investigated it, I've talked to the manufacturers, not the best endorsement you can get, but I've talked to them a number of times. And a good one is this Carl guy at C&D Company. I recommend anybody that wants to know more about it, I'll give you a phone number. He's willing to talk to us on the phone, by the way. They all are, all three of these people. Tom Weber, he was instrumental in making a lake in Minnesota go from eutrophic to pristine, I guess, or mesotrophic, or whatever it is, the better one.
Yeah.
And everything I found, it works. It pulls rather than cuts. So that's about, and I'm willing to go looking for more, but that's what I got so far.
Okay, so the thing, I think if we want to make it real, if it's something we want to do, I don't know if somebody wants to help on this. So I think
We would have to have somebody put together a presentation, get everybody aligned, bring it to council. It's a huge amount of money, right? We'd have to get it in a budget. I'm assuming we'd have to sell one thing, buy another thing, understand the financial aspects of it.
Okay.
So a couple of things that I think would have to happen, and I'm looking for somebody to maybe help volunteer to do some of this math, but
No, I can do it.
I would think the cost of the thing, of the new one, versus how much we think we could sell the existing one from. And I think we could ballpark those, okay? So that would be like the upfront cost and the actual investment. And then we gotta look at the operational cost. So somehow quantify the one that we have, how much time it takes us to operate it, what the capacity of the machine is. Because I know this one is smaller, right? So it's smaller, it's gonna take us more time to cover the same acreage, so there's an increased operational cost, I'm assuming, with the personnel. And we have to compare those two things and at least probably get the full financial picture together and then say, here's what it looks like money-wise, and then here's what it looks like benefit-wise. I don't know how we can quantify the benefit of it, but maybe we can. And then I think we'd have to put that together as a package that we would walk into council and say, here's what we're thinking, right? And then try and.
I mean, do we have
get council-
something with the specs of both ours and theirs? I mean, obviously with theirs, we get the specs, right?
Yeah.
Their load, how,
Yeah, I got that.
here's the even like when it's operating, I'm sure they have some kind of metric of acres per hour.
Yeah.
Or something that they cover, like what is the general acreage per hour it covers? And then what is the load capacity, right? And we could look at hours and what's the load, let's just say I'm making stuff up, 10 cubic yards
Yeah.
per load. Okay, that's hours today. And we do 4 loads, so we got 40 cubic yards, okay? And that, they have to go to the shore 4 times. Now, if we go to a smaller one, it's the same 40 cubic yards, and now you gotta go to the shore 8 times, right? It's gonna take you that much longer to operate. So just trying to understand what that looks like, how much more often we need the operators out there to use it, and get some kind of math together that shows the business case for it. I think that's probably what we would be able to come in and be like, here are the advantages of it, disadvantages are, advantage, it's smaller, and it can go under the bridge, it can go into the canals. Disadvantage, it's smaller. And it's,
Jerry, have you shared with them
Yeah.
the model we have, and have they given you?
I don't know if I have.
yeah,
I don't-
it's,
I don't
the
think I
load
have.
capacity is smaller, it's slower, it takes
It's
longer to
faster,
operate.
that's what
Yeah,
it is.
sure,
Yeah.
but
That's
I-
what I say, have you talked to them, say, here's the model we have?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
yeah, I think trying to.
Ryan gave me the model number and everything for
Yep.
our existing one.
Well, and they might actually do some of the work for you, in the
Oh.
sense of if you give them the model number and say, hey, this is what we need to know, they might do some of the heavy lifting because they want to sell it,
Yeah.
you know?
I think that would be the way to get the story together. Here's what we're thinking. We want to change. We think, you believe that it's the right thing to do because it does X, Y, and Z better. It accesses more parts of the lake. Here's the financials. Here's the operating costs. Here's the recommendation to council, and then council decides on what we're going to do, right? So I think that would be the next step if we want to make this thing more than this. So
Yeah.
I haven't done much research on it, but I'm trusting that you've
Well,
done
that's what I'm
plenty.
here for.
You've done plenty, so,
My other thought would be, since this newer harvester that you're talking about is supposed to pull it from the roots, right?
yeah.
I would suspect that it might be pulling more material than the current harvester, in the sense of, like, thinking about how many trips.
Oh.
Just something to think about, because if you're pulling it from the roots, you're obviously pulling more
Yeah.
material out of the water than if you're just
Cutting it.
cutting it and pulling it out.
Yeah, I think you're gonna end up in assumptions and rounding error at that point.
Yeah, that's true.
Everything we're doing is gonna be throwing darts. I think if we just
That's
look
true.
at capacity, we have the
Just look at
data.
what we have now.
We
Yeah.
have the data of how many loads there are.
A lot smaller.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the exact one. I'm assuming there's multiple eco harvester models, or is there one model?
There's one.
So I think that would be the next, who's the primary seller that you've been talking to? Is it through Reader's Digest? It's something different?
Reader's Digest or Echo Harvester, yeah. You get, I think it's the same phone number you end up with.
Mhm.
And phone number, they're all willing to talk to us
Mhm.
by phone. And David says, yeah, you can have them by phone,
Mhm. Okay.
so.
Yeah, it's a hell of a lot smaller.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, it's significantly smaller than what we're doing.
How many operators do we usually have?
Two.
So the other question would be, would they be willing to both work? Or no, but then that's cost of two of them, which is.
I mean, our
Also figuring
harvester
When you
was-
talk to them, give them the model that we have, and, like I said, I wish we could have the specs on ours too.
Yeah.
but-
I have them.
Well, we can get it.
I mean, looking at this thing, it's tiny compared to ours, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
But I think that goes in the positive and the negative, right? It's
Right, right.
smaller so that you get to access more areas. I
Under
mean, we
the
used to have
bridge.
two.
It'll go under the bridge.
We used to have two harvesters.
Yeah, that's what I.
Okay, so I mean, that's another option, if we want to go
Two
crazy.
small ones.
Well,
So, yeah, so our harvester, yeah, it was $180,000. And then this one new is $100,000, right? So even if we sold ours used, I'm sure that we would cover the cost of this. But the operating cost is more expensive. The guys, looks like this guy has to stand for the whole time. Maybe it will be harder to get an operator.
Get them a stool.
Yeah, all right.
So I think that would be the next.
Okay.
Or, I mean, another option would be ask them if they can get a seat on it, like a rotating, like a jump seat, like in a truck.
They may have one.
I'm sure they would. That'd be kind of odd. You have to stand the entire time.
It looks
Oh, no,
like he
there's a
has
picture
seat.
of a guy
Looks like
sitting.
he has a seat.
Yeah,
He might-
he's sitting.
He might be standing just to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it looks like he's sitting when he's cruising.
Okay, I think let's just say that next, and then we can get something, I can help put something together there
I
too,
will.
and then we could do it over email.
Okay.
Okay.
Lake enforcement issues.
Lake enforcement, nothing right now, let's get through that. Boat cleaning station signage.
Done, it's up, the sign looks great, you can actually read it, we got it for a good price, and we're good to go.
Boom, perfect. So we will strike that from the agenda moving
Yes,
forward.
remove that, yes.
So we'll remove boat cleaning station from the agenda. All right, septic field update. So Jerry, give us your update on the septic stuff. It sounds like you got some communications from Oakland County and things like this.
Yeah, that was a pleasant surprise yesterday. I decided I was gonna ask the manufacturers, that was a good suggestion. Didn't make a lot of progress that way, so I decided, well, I'll call Oakland County and dive into the volcano. And I got this lady on the phone, and she said, if you're gonna dig up anything, you need a permit.
Yep.
If you're gonna drop something into your existing septic, you're cool.
Okay.
So we can go with that. And I'm down to, there are three of them, Sledgehammer, Piranha, and Septic Genie. I think like I said, my favorite is the Septic Genie because it's DIY and about $1,500. The other ones require a contractor.
Okay, so this thing in general, though, the way I view this is like educational thing for the community, right? Where we would
Yeah.
send out
Yeah.
some kind of thing, whether it's in there's like a spring newsletter that goes out or something that we would say, hey, we did some research. There are some options out there that could potentially extend the life of your septic system, right? This could be viewed as a method to extend your life, so you either don't have to connect to the city sewer, or if you're not on the city sewer and you want to extend your life, there are some options such as this, right? And you can do,
Good.
here's how you would execute it. These ones, here's an example of a model. Like, I don't think the village is going to go endorse a specific thing. But it would be like a communication that goes out to people in the village. And we would say, if you're on septic, here's an option, and we could explain, put a blurb on, how this changes the way that the septic system works, and then introduces air, and you got the aerobic bacteria and stuff. And we could do like a blurb in like a mail out or something elsewhere. That would be what.
Email.
Yep. And like I said, that the spring, they do like a spring newsletter. Let me see what the newsletter is.
I saw the emails that do it for everything too, and if you wanted something.
Yeah, they did send something out in the newsletter. Let me see.
Jerry, when you were talking to him, I know last time, I mentioned something about, I don't know if you asked him about if we got like a group of people in the village together. If they would
Yeah, I
offer,
asked
like, a
that, and
discount.
he said 10% off, the guy from Septic Genie, something like that. I thought it'd be a bigger, but I think he had upped his price.
Oh, this is funny.
So it kicked- Sort of like fire sale, and we just raised the price, now we'll drop it.
This is funny. Tabitha. I'm working on a spring or summer newsletter. If there's anything you'd like to include, please send it to me by 4 p.m. Friday, April 12th.
All right, get it right on.
So that was 4 days ago, so we need a time machine. But how about we do this? How about we reply to her and say, hey, maybe she'll let us in late. Hey,
I asked if we could include something with the newsletter, and she said no, because the village newsletter, because if you include a piece of paper with it, it ups the postage a lot.
oh yeah,
So,
but maybe we could have something
Little link
printed
or
in it.
something.
Yeah, something in it.
Put a QR code that takes you to the link.
Yeah.
Learn how to extend your life.
How to use a QR code.
Everybody knows how to use a QR code.
Well, I wouldn't.
Everybody that lived through the pandemic and went to a restaurant knows.
How do you, I was gonna say, how do you order at a restaurant anymore? How do you, even my dad does QR code. That's saying something.
Speaking of the village sending things out, I remember that insurance company that's selling the lines being protected, and you said your lines are protected through,
Yeah, I don't know what the deal with that was. So.
because didn't you say your sewer line?
So there's from your house, so the difference is from your house to the pump is one thing, and then from the pump to the street is a different thing. And I don't know which one's covered where.
Oh, okay.
Your house to your pump
is probably not covered.
is probably not covered. That's probably what they're trying to do for that. But
Right.
from the pump to the actual thing, and your house to the pump, for some people, is that far.
Right.
Right? But that whole thing of the village endorsed insurance policy, that's really weird to me. I don't know.
Yeah, and especially if people, like you said, I hope people aren't paying double coverage. Or
Yeah.
they have coverage and then paying for
I
coverage.
don't really know.
And then I've never heard of anybody's personal water line blowing from the street to their house.
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't know what that all was, but yeah, I wasn't involved with that. Okay, let's keep moving. So I just emailed Tabitha to see if we can get something in the newsletter. So I CC'd you, Jerry, so we'll see what she says. Maybe she'll let us in. Okay, future business items and open discussion. So where did you get with budget last time? Because we do have to do budget.
We just approved to keep it as is because we weren't sure if there was anything new.
Okay. So the only things that I can think of is if you wanted to do something and add money for this fish habitat thing, we could throw money in there, throw a guess.
Yeah, I would not even know where to begin to guess what that cost would be.
I mean, it's gonna be a biodegradable structure, probably made out of wood and concrete, and a couple of them. So $2,000. I don't know, we can see, let me see if I can find it.
I mean,
Let me see what they were. Fish.
They're called fish.
fish
Sticks?
sticks.
Habitat, fish habitats. Here's the permit. The permit's not gonna have the cost, obviously, but, like, I think it's just like a wooden structure, fish structure. 7 wooden structures weighed down by stone for fish purposes. 3 by 3 by 3. 15 feet, in 15 feet of water, create fish structure habitat. Natural materials, wood and stone, at a depth, so it's 7 things, wood and stone, 3 by 3 by 3.
Is there a price in there now? They put in a couple grand?
$2,000.
There we go, right there.
$2,000 bucks?
What's that?
Oh, is that a cost right there?
No, that's the water depth.
I was trying to look it up and I just kept seeing like fish sticks, like.
Oh, yeah.
food, like-
No, you gotta put fish sticks, fish habitat.
Yeah, no, that's
Fish
what I
hab-
ended up.
Yeah, fish habitat. I don't know, so that's something we could add if we wanted to.
Okay.
And then, I don't know what, I'm gonna have to look into this recycling program, this hazardous waste recycling program. I don't know if we'd have to pay for that or not. But
And then what about what Paul was talking about today with those?
that's already approved.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, we have money in the budget for the website edition, so I can just.
Oh, no, I meant for the actual, what we're gonna do about it.
Oh, yeah, that I don't know. I don't think we have any idea what we're gonna do about it. Let me just see what we have for budget. Hold on. So did you don't have a different file, this is just the same file, right? Let me just save this, make a copy. Did you send anything to David or anything?
I did not.
You did not, okay. Water budget, 25. Let's make a copy. All right. Let's crank this out. Should not be difficult. All right, so last year, board projects, all right. All right, let's see what we want. So printing and publication, board projects, conferences, fees and dues. So conference fees and dues would be if we were sending anybody to any, I don't even know if we've ever used that in the last couple of years.
No, you haven't.
We haven't gone to anything, but we still keep that in there. Printing and publications was $1,000 for signs and stuff.
We use that.
Which you used, so we can keep that. So board projects. So what we'll have, so for the safety festival, I don't think we spend anywhere near $1,000, but we usually just throw $1,000 in the budget in case you want to do food or buy the gift cards or something like that, which is fine. Actual fish count, we're not going to do. Website, we usually have money already approved for that. I'll just say $500 that we'll do there. Clean boats,
That's
clean
not
water, we
yours.
don't do
That's not-
anything.
Like, this is literally, like, when I talk to the guy, it's literally like.
So that thing with Paul Hausler though, that's gonna be to the council, or is it to us?
What's that?
Well, if we do anything, these.
We would need a budget for that, but I don't know I don't even know what the beginning of what that is. And that's not something that, even if we went through the process and said, here's what we're going to do, I don't think they're gonna execute it this calendar year, in this summer, in the spring, do you think?
No, something like that big, that project,
Yeah, so
that's gonna take a year at least.
Depends on what it is,
Yeah, so if you're doing like 8 feet on the road end, it's one thing, but if you want to do a whole entire 40 feet of shoreline,
Yeah.
that's drastically different.
Yeah, and then yours, because all of that stuff comes with like government grant matches and there's paperwork and it's like
How long
a
is the
bunch of stuff.
administration to find those resources?
Yeah.
Get
I
that
think-
approved?
I don't think we're gonna need budget this year for that. Okay, so let's look at this real quick. So we have printing and publications, $1,000, board projects. For board projects, I guess what projects do we have? That would be really it. Fish habitats, let's just say whatever, $2,500, I'll make something up. Website stuff, which is just continuous improvement, which is $500 I threw there. Safety festival, $1,000, I don't think we're gonna use that, but we'll keep it. What else do you guys have? What bright ideas do we have? We got,
You should probably add $100,000 for Harvester.
I'll come back with the report next month. You have the check ready.
Yeah, $100,000 for a harvester, probably
Yeah.
not gonna fly.
Yeah.
Well,
What we would end up doing is, again, this would be probably go through the paperwork, get the analysis, talk to them.
Yeah.
The delta, who knows what the delta's gonna
If
be.
we
need
buy
a
this thing,
financial-
those guys have to come out here and give us a lecture on how to use it.
Of course.
That's part of the,
or we send Kyle, he wanted to go.
well, they gotta come here so the drivers, the harvester drivers know how to use it.
Okay.
Okay. What projects, what do you guys noodle up for projects? You have fish habitats, I threw some money in there for that, so that'll be one thing. Safety fair, we got that. Obviously, the chemical program, which I think the cost went up, I'll have to go update that.
They did, that's it.
What was last year, 75,000 or something?
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah, we'll have to update the cost to match last year's, because some of it went up. Fish stocking,
Well, and the other thing, Jerry, you can mention is.
2,500 for fish stocking. Greenaway drain maintenance has got $1,000 regular. Waterfowl program, we have $1,000, maybe pay somebody to do it.
Waterfowl program.
We should hire somebody for that.
What's the waterfowl program?
I think that's when we actually used to do the roundup,
No.
which we're not allowed to do anymore. That means we have $1,000, that means we get
We can split
$500
that,
each.
yeah, all right. We're there.
Congratulations. I was gonna say,
Okay.
if you're putting together a presentation, you should mention how, that new harvester is supposed to bring chemical costs down.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I am going to go with this unless you guys have some extra ideas. I
That's
think we're
good, go with it.
Okay, I'll update this and send it to David. Okay, that's the last item. Village Council Liaison. Knock us up.
Actually nice, we actually had a code enforcement officer come in, explain a little bit more in depth about his role, how he does his job inside the village. We've also had him expand the detail on his reports he gives to us.
Okay.
Some more information, what tickets he's writing, how many is actually going out there, what's going to court, so that was a nice improvement. With Shrink Wrap Recycling, took care of that earlier. Our treasurer, signed on for another 3 years with us.
Oh, good.
Keep Jennifer, so that she's locked in. We had another discussion about Ventura Drive, about possible solutions to it. It's a weird T-end road, and there's some parking issues. We're now at the point, too, where we're going to reach out to everyone in the area who's affected and get a response from everyone to see
Okay.
how big of an issue it is. And then just to add in there, too, we got Park and Rec Master Plan that they're kicking off this year as well. Key topics.
All right, planning commission is in France for 2 months.
Whoa.
I can add into that too, we didn't have a quorum last month, so we tabled the RM1 discussion out, so.
Okay. You didn't have a quorum of council?
No, at planning commission.
Oh, plan on.
Just throw it up at the-
Okay. Anything else, roundtable? Anybody got anything to add, or we can go home? and knock it out?
Question?
Yep, go for it.
We dropped the level 18 inches every
Yep,
fall.
yep.
I've read several places where dropping the drop, and we drop it to kill the weeds.
And to allow
Not
people
really.
to work on their seawalls.
Yeah.
to serve-
It's
Yeah,
mostly
yeah,
for
and-
dock and
Yeah,
seawall
and,
maintenance.
and I've read several things where they drop it, it freezes out the weeds. Nobody's heard anything. I'll keep investigating.
Where you drop it and it freezes out the weeds? That's-
The weeds, it freezes, the ground freezes and it kills off the weeds.
Oh,
So it's,
So-
so it's a good thing.
So he's talking, we out there 5 feet, I don't know if you can, I'm looking
Oh,
into
yeah.
it.
So back-
I thought maybe somebody knew more about that.
Yeah, so there was a big effort years ago
Yeah,
to drop it like 5 feet to get a bunch of stumps out of the lake.
Yeah.
That was like in the 70s.
yeah.
no, it's-
Now with the-
David said-
Yeah, now with the dam and the way it's controlled, basically you can drop it 18 inches. We lift the gate 18 inches.
Okay, okay.
So that's pretty standard, but I mean, we could look into doing more if we wanted to.
Yeah, this one thing, the TVA dropped it several feet, and they killed off 95% of the weeds, and it did better than 34 herbicides. Boy, I'm starting to know that stuff. Not bad for an old guy.
Hey, not bad. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what we can do, given
Yeah.
the structure of the dam and stuff,
Yeah.
but maybe we can. I don't know what, as far as I know, because we lift the sluice gate
And that gate itself is just 18 inches, so when we
Okay.
lift it, that's the new level. I don't know if you can go lower than that.
Okay, I'll look into it more.
Okay,
All right.
Very good.
all right.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Gavel there,